Ava Morgan stood quietly near the buffet table, wearing her usual modest dress and light makeup. The annual Morgan family reunion buzzed with chatter, but she remained unnoticed, just how they liked it. Her Aunt Elaine gave her the once-over and smirked. "Poor girl, still a secretary," she said loudly enough for everyone around to hear. The room erupted in soft laughter. Ava gave a small smile and said nothing. No one knew she was the CEO of Skyline Solutions, a tech company now valued at $350 million. And tomorrow her family's failing business would need a $100 million deal from her company to survive. They just didn't know it yet. Where are you watching from today? Kindly hit like, comment and subscribe to this channel for more. Growing up in the Morgan family had never been warm. Their grand colonial house in Connecticut looked perfect from the outside. 5 bedrooms, polished floors, big windows, but it was a house of cold ambition. George and Linda Morgan had built Morgan Developments from the ground up. They pushed their 3 sons into the business world early. Adam, the eldest, was praised for his strategic mind. Brian had the charm to win clients. Daniel, the youngest son, was the heart, always trying to keep the peace. But Ava? She was just the girl. Dinner conversations were business briefings. Ava tried to join in once and was laughed out of the room. George would often say, "Business isn't really for women, Ava. Your brothers have the mindset for it." He didn't mean to sound cruel, it was just how he believed the world worked. Linda would nod and add, "There are other ways to be useful, dear." But Elaine, George's sister, was the worst. She'd married into money and never worked a day in her life, but she carried herself like a queen. A real lady doesn't care about numbers. "Just focus on looking pretty and finding a good man," she told Ava at age 13. Ava smiled politely, but her heart stung with disappointment. The only one who ever believed in Ava was her grandmother, Ruth. Grandma Ruth had managed the books for her husband's business for decades, quietly without praise. "You remind me of myself," she'd whisper during their private talks. "Quiet water runs deep, sweetheart. Let them underestimate you." Grandma Ruth secretly paid for Ava's business courses in high school. When she passed away, she left Ava just enough money to finish college, and a strong belief in herself. "They don't see you yet," Grandma Ruth had said. "But one day they will. On your terms." At 16, Ava had worked for weeks on a business proposal after hearing George worry about declining profits. She printed charts, graphs, and typed out a 10-page plan. During dinner, with trembling hands, she stood and presented her ideas to the whole table. Her brothers snickered halfway through. George nodded dismissively. "That's creative, but real business is more complicated than you think." Brian joked, "Maybe you should focus on the prom committee instead." Daniel tried to soften it. "Nice try, sis, but you're missing the basics." Elaine sipped her wine and said, "Focus on finding a husband. That's your best investment." Ava left the table in silence, fighting back tears. That night, Ava made herself a promise. She would build something real, something powerful. And one day they would all regret laughing at her. She didn't tell anyone. She knew they wouldn't listen anyway. Instead, she started planning. When it came time for college, Ava didn't go to the Ivy League schools her brothers had attended. She went to State University. Her parents said it was a decent choice for a girl. They hoped she'd meet a smart husband. What they didn't know was that Ava was double majoring in business and computer science. She worked part-time and took night classes. She was building her future, brick by brick in silence. During her second year, Ava met someone who changed everything. Professor Diana Lane. A former tech executive turned professor, Diana saw something special in Ava. "You don't just see problems," she told her. "You see patterns, and that's rare." Diana became her mentor. With her support, Ava built confidence and created a strong network. Each summer, Ava took internships in tech companies, telling her family she was just working admin jobs. That wasn't a total lie. She did start as an assistant. But her ideas got noticed. By senior year, Ava graduated with honors. At graduation dinner, Elaine asked, "So when will you put that degree to use? Maybe snag a husband with a future?" Ava smiled. "I'm exploring options." After college, Ava took a job at a mid-sized tech company called Tech Forward. She told her family she was an executive assistant and they believed it. Her dad said, "As long as the benefits are decent." Her brothers joked about her getting coffee for the real business people. What they didn't know was that Ava had joined the business development team and was already working on a plan. She'd grown up around real estate. Now she wanted to blend that knowledge with tech to change how things were done. Her cover story kept them off her back, and her quiet determination fueled her every move. At Tech Forward, Ava worked weekends and stayed late. She volunteered for extra projects, studied trends in real estate tech, and saw the flaws companies ignored. 6 months in, she noticed a huge gap. Developers were losing millions because of poor project tracking and outdated tools. So she built a prototype on her own time. When she showed it to her manager, Jacob, he was impressed. He arranged a meeting with the CTO. They liked it but wanted to turn it into something else. Something Ava knew wouldn't work. That's when she realized, to build what she truly believed in, she would need to do it alone. Not long after, Ava flew to San Francisco for a tech conference. She told her parents it was a company event. At a panel discussion, she asked a sharp question that turned into a coffee chat with a fellow attendee. Tasha, a software engineer from another company. That solution you mentioned could change everything, Tasha said. Then why isn't anyone building it? Ava asked. Tasha smiled. Maybe we should. That casual comment became the beginning of Skyline Solutions. For the next 6 months they built their plan. At family dinners, Ava stayed quiet as her brothers bragged about their latest deals. Still answering phones, Ava? Elaine would tease. Something like that, Ava always replied. The hardest part wasn't the work. It was the money. Ava couldn't ask her family or their contacts for help without revealing the truth. She and Tasha pitched investors again and again. Most said no. 2 women in real estate tech. Not enough experience, they heard 27 times. But they kept going. One day they pitched a retired tech executive named Mr. Grant. After hearing them out, he leaned back and smiled. You're not chasing trends. You're solving a real problem, and you get it better than anyone else I've met. He gave them $250,000 for a 15% stake. It was just enough to quit their jobs and build full-time. Ava told her family she'd been promoted to executive assistant to a private investor. It explained her new travel schedule and why she missed family events. They didn't press. At least she's employed, George said once. In truth, Ava and Tasha rented a tiny office in a rundown part of town and worked 18-hour days. They ate instant noodles, ran on coffee, and hired 2 young developers who believed in their mission. One major coding bug nearly killed the project 3 months in. Ava stayed awake for 72 hours, crying in frustration until she finally cracked the fix. We can actually do this, she whispered. Their first client was a small developer in Arizona. Skyline's platform helped them avoid a regulatory fine that could have cost $1.2 million. Word spread quickly. 3 more clients signed up that same month. But at Christmas dinner, Ava still smiled through her family's usual banter. Her brothers talked about stocks and land deals. Elaine asked if she'd finally met someone decent. Ava nodded and said, "Work's going well." That was all. Inside she was exhausted but proud. They had just landed their 10th client. Her father clinked his wine glass. To the boys and to Ava, who's at least stable. The double life got harder to manage. Ava created 2 bank accounts, 2 email addresses, and kept a modest apartment near her parents' house for visits. But her real life was in San Francisco. At Skyline she led strategy meetings, negotiated investor deals, and mapped out growth plans. At family dinners she was still just the assistant. "You're doing okay, sweetheart?" her mom would ask, passing the salad. His mom. "Everything's fine," Ava would reply. Sometimes she wanted to scream. But she kept smiling. She wasn't ready to reveal the truth, not yet. One evening, Tasha looked at her across their shared office space. "Why are you still hiding this from them?" she asked. Ava paused, then sighed. "Because I'm not ready. Not until it's undeniable. Not until they have to take me seriously." But deep down Ava worried. What if even undeniable success wasn't enough? What if they still found a way to belittle it? So she pressed forward in silence. Every dismissive comment from her family became fuel. Every family photo where she stood quietly in the background reminded her why she kept building. 1 line of code, 1 contract at a time. 3 years flew by. Skyline grew from 4 people to 50. Their platform now managed contractor schedules, predicted regulatory changes, and tracked real-time development data. Their office had moved to a sleek building downtown with a view of the bay. But to her family, Ava was still working at that same little job. They had no idea she now made 7 figures and lived in a luxury condo. "You should think about buying, dear," her mom had said during a recent visit to her modest Connecticut apartment. "It's good to build equity." Ava smiled, hiding the deed to her San Francisco home. As the company expanded, Ava built her executive team carefully. Tasha, her co-founder, became Chief Strategy Officer. Jasmine, a brilliant technologist, was hired as CTO. Marcus managed the finances as CFO and Claire became CEO. "You're the sharpest founder I've ever worked with," Claire told Ava after a difficult quarter. "Your instincts are rare." Their belief in Ava filled a space left empty by years of being dismissed. Only Tasha knew the full truth about Ava's family. The rest just assumed she was a quiet, capable leader who didn't like attention. Their biggest breakthrough came with an algorithm that predicted local government changes likely to impact building projects. It saved clients millions. A top real estate journal featured Skyline with the headline, "Skyline Solutions Redefines Risk in Development." Ava refused a photo. "Let's keep the focus on the tech," she said. But truthfully, she didn't want her family to accidentally recognize her. Her name on public documents was listed only as A. Morgan. Her email, business records, and even property titles were hidden under trust entities. So there were close calls. At a tech conference in Boston, Ava spotted her brother Daniel across the room. She ducked behind a display and sent Tasha in her place. Later, at a family dinner, Daniel mentioned the event. "There's this one company, Skyline something. They're totally changing the game. We should look into using them." George shook his head. "Tech solutions are overpriced. We don't need them." Ava said nothing, her fork pausing mid-air. The irony was sharp. Her company had solved those same problems for dozens of other developers already, quietly, efficiently, and successfully. Every win came with a cost. Ava couldn't share her first luxury car. Couldn't show photos from her first-class flight. Couldn't tell anyone about the $1 million donation she'd made to a women's tech foundation. The loneliness grew. She began seeing a therapist, Dr. Karen, who asked gently, "What are you waiting for?" Ava had no clear answer. "I guess I want to be undeniable, so that no one can laugh it off." Dr. Karen nodded. "That's not a goal, it's a defense." Ava left the session thinking about that for days. Was she building an empire, or just building armor? Ava didn't have to wait long for that undeniable moment. Skyline launched a new arm, Summit Investments, focused on real estate partnerships and public-private projects. Summit looked for struggling developers with good land but poor systems. Ava stayed behind the scenes while Tasha and Claire led the expansion. One Thursday morning, Ava reviewed the latest project list and nearly dropped her coffee. Summit was in talks with a company called Morgan Developments. Her family's business. "No," she muttered, staring at the screen. "This can't be real." But it was. Her two worlds were about to crash into each other. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mom. "Emergency family meeting. This weekend. Dad insists. No excuses." Ava's heart sank. She already had major meetings lined up, including a call with international partners. But family emergencies were rare. She knew something serious had happened. "Family stuff," she told Claire. "I'll be offline for a few days." Claire nodded. "Want backup?" Ava shook her head. "Not yet." She booked a flight to Connecticut for Friday night. What she didn't know was that her secret life would be impossible to protect by Sunday. The moment Ava stepped into her parents' living room, she knew it was bad. Her dad looked 10 years older. Her mom clutched his hand, eyes red. Her brothers sat around the room, tense, tired, and unusually quiet. Aunt Elaine, of course, sat perfectly upright with her usual judgmental smirk. "Now we can begin," she said as Ava entered. Her father didn't waste time. "Morgan Developments is in trouble," he said, his voice shaking. "The Westfield project has collapsed. Over budget, behind schedule. We're looking at potential bankruptcy." Ava stayed quiet as her brothers started pointing fingers. "This is on Daniel," Adam snapped. "He pushed the timeline too fast." "You were the one who rushed approvals," Daniel shot back. "Don't blame me." Brian jumped in. "None of this would have happened if we'd done our due diligence. We didn't plan for the environmental cleanup." George tried to quiet them. Linda looked on the verge of tears. Ava listened, heart pounding. The problems they described, regulatory delays, contractor mismanagement, lack of coordination, were exactly what Skyline solved every day. But here she was just the secretary daughter. What's the plan? Ava finally asked. The room quieted. George took a deep breath. We have 2 offers. One's from Maxwell Corporation. They want to buy the company outright. But they'll gut it. Fire most of the staff. Ava frowned. Maxwell had a bad industry reputation. The other, she asked. An investment group, Linda answered. Called Summit Investments. They've offered $100 million. Enough to save the business and let us keep some control. Ava's heart nearly stopped. Summit. Her company's own subsidiary. We don't know much about them, Brian said. But they're offering better terms than Maxwell. They sent someone to meet us already, Daniel added. Sharp guy. Knew our numbers. Had insight on everything. Ava knew instantly. James, her investment officer. We're supposed to meet the CEO tomorrow morning, George said. If all goes well, we sign. Ava's mind raced. Tomorrow. That meant they were expecting her. Aunt Elaine huffed. I still think Maxwell's safer. At least we know them. These Summit people came out of nowhere. Ava forced herself to breathe evenly. Where are you staying tonight? Her mom asked. I got a hotel, she replied quickly. Nonsense, Linda insisted. Stay here. We need family around. That night, after avoiding more backhanded comments from Elaine, still at your little desk job, dear? Ava locked herself in her old bedroom. It still had faded posters on the wall. The business school acceptance letter Grandma Ruth had once pinned up was gone, taken down years ago. Ava called Tasha. It's my family, she said. Summit is in talks to buy their company. Tasha gasped. Wait, that's the Morgan deal? They don't know who you are. They think the CEO's just some guy. But it's me. And tomorrow, I'm expected to walk into that meeting and reveal everything. The next day the family had to carry on like nothing was wrong. The annual Morgan family reunion was already scheduled at the lake house. We couldn't cancel, Linda explained. Everyone's already flying in. Ava arrived late after a morning of emergency calls with her executive team. She had paused the Summit deal temporarily to buy herself time. As she stepped onto the familiar lawn, it looked like any other year. White tents, laughing cousins, tables lined with catered food. No one knew the hosts were near bankruptcy. Ava wore a department store dress and simple shoes. She blended in just as they expected. There she is, called her cousin Emma. The career girl. People turned to look, giving polite smiles. Ava smiled back and braced herself. Aunt Elaine appeared holding a champagne glass. Ava, darling. We were just talking about you. Tell us, still with that little job? Ava kept her tone light. Yes, still there. And what is it you do again? Answer phones? Set meetings. Ava gave the usual vague reply. I assist the executive team. Cousin Thomas, who worked in finance, offered, I could help you get into something with more potential. Admin work is fine, but... Ava nodded politely. He didn't know Skyline had acquired his own company's software vendor 2 months ago. Elaine clinked her glass. Ava's always been the cautious one. Safe choices. That's not a bad thing, she said loudly, drawing chuckles. Ava spotted her father across the yard. He gave her the familiar warning look. Don't start anything. Keep the peace. Her brothers mingled like nothing was wrong. Brian laughing with cousins, Adam talking to an uncle about real estate. Daniel stood alone by the dock. During lunch, Ava was seated with Elaine and other relatives. One by one they bragged about their children. Jason just made partner. Elizabeth opened her second gallery. Stephen closed a $20 million deal, Elaine said proudly. Everyone turned to Ava. What about you, dear? Asked Diane. Ava opened her mouth, but Elaine jumped in. Ava's been at the same desk job for 10 years. Such loyalty. Ava smiled through the sting. It's actually an executive assistant position, she said quietly. Oh, of course, dear, Elaine replied with exaggerated sympathy. Do you get to order the special coffee now? The table chuckled again. Ava's hands tightened under the table. A decade of being mocked. Of being ignored. And now the company they were belittling her for working at was about to own theirs. Before she could speak, the tent grew silent. Their longtime family lawyer Mr. Carter had arrived. He whispered something to George. The CEO of Summit requires the entire family leadership present tomorrow, he said aloud. No exceptions. Ava kept her face neutral as heads turned. Elaine snorted. Why all this fuss? If Richard had just diversified like my Stephen said years ago. George motioned Ava aside. Just family leadership, sweetheart, he said gently. Ava nodded. Of course. But Elaine, ever the opportunist, said, wait, maybe Ava can help. She's used to handling office matters. She gave a mocking smile. Maybe she can tell us how real businesses handle stress. Laughter again. Ava stood up, her expression unreadable. I need some air. She walked down to the dock alone. The lake shimmered under the afternoon sun, the same lake she used to sit by as a teenager, dreaming of being taken seriously. Her phone buzzed. A message from Tasha. Teams prepped. Conference room booked. What do you want to do? Ava looked out at the water, then typed back. Tell them to be ready. I'm done hiding. The next morning, Ava arrived at the hotel 30 minutes early. She wore a tailored charcoal suit, hair in a sleek bun, subtle makeup, and her grandmother's diamond earrings. Her armor. Her executive team, Tasha, Jasmine, Marcus, and Claire, waited in a separate room. Are you ready? Tasha asked. Not really, Ava said. But it's time. At 9:55, Ava stood by the window in the main conference room, looking out at the skyline. She heard the familiar voices before the door opened. George, her brothers, and Mr. Carter entered first. The CEO of Summit should be here any moment, Carter was saying. Then they saw her. Ava. George blinked. What are you doing here? Ava turned slowly. I'm here for the meeting, she said. This is private business, Adam said sharply. You should go help Mom. Ava walked to the head of the table and gestured to the seats. Please. Sit. Something in her tone made them pause. George frowned. We're waiting for Summit CEO. Ava looked directly at him. You don't need to wait. I'm the CEO of Summit Investments, and of Skyline Solutions. Silence. Long breathless silence. What? Daniel whispered. Mr. Carter squinted. You're Abe Morgan? That's right, Ava replied calmly. CEO of a company now worth $375 million. Elaine burst in 15 minutes late as usual. What's this? Take your daughter to work day? No one laughed. Ava pressed the intercom. Send in the executive team. The door opened and her 4 leaders entered, all poised and professional. This is my team, she said. Tasha Lee, co-founder and chief strategy officer. Jasmine Moore, CEO. Marcus Hayes, CEO. Claire Dunn, COO. Elaine gasped. This is a scam. Call security. Claire replied coolly. All documentation is available. Ms. Morgan is who she says she is. Marcus turned on the large screen showing Skyline's corporate structure, media coverage and valuation. Ava's name front and center. George dropped into a chair, stunned. All this time, he whispered. Adam's shock turned to anger. You planned this. You plotted against us. No, Ava said. Skyline identified Morgan Developments as a strategic investment. I halted negotiations the moment I realized the connection. What happens now? Brian asked carefully. That depends, Ava said. Skyline's offer remains. It's fair and structured to save the company. You retain 20% ownership. But operations will be under my leadership. You'll run Morgan Developments? Daniel asked. You. Yes, Ava replied. Summit will lead the integration. Elaine stood. Richard, you can't be serious. This is shameful. Ava turned to her. Shameful? Like telling a 16-year-old girl her future is in lipstick and marriage, not numbers and vision? You underestimated me for years. And now you want my help? This is help. Christopher looked at her, eyes wide. You weren't just being polite when you asked about our projects. You were learning. I was trying to help, Ava said. But none of you listened. George spoke next. You should have told us. Would you have believed me? Ava asked. When I presented that first proposal at 16, you all laughed. Why would I give you a second chance to dismiss me? Her father looked away. And now? Adam said, his voice bitter. You want to make us employees in our own company? I want to save the company, Ava replied. But we'll do it my way with transparency, technology, and accountability. The room was silent again. Finally, George said, I want to see the full terms. Of course, Ava nodded. Take your time. As the team handed out the documents, Christopher whispered to her, Mac, I'm sorry. You deserved better from all of us. Ava didn't answer. She didn't need to. 6 months later, Ava stood in the atrium of the newly renamed Skyline Morgan Tower, watching employees from both companies mingle at a celebration. Her father now held an honorary title. Adam had left. Brian stayed in a limited sales role. Christopher had taken over community outreach and found new purpose there. Elaine still called it manipulation, but Ava no longer cared. Her mother, however, had started volunteering with women entrepreneurs, and for the first time truly listened to her daughter. Ava touched the diamond earrings she always wore to big meetings, Grandma Ruth's legacy. Her journey had been hard, lonely, and secret, but she had built something undeniable. As she turned to greet a group of young women entrepreneurs visiting the office, she smiled fully. Let them underestimate you, she said to them. Then show them exactly who you are. Moral lesson. True power doesn't come from proving others wrong. It comes from proving yourself right even when no one is watching.